You were never hiking. You were being led into something buried. You're listening to ASMR 404Found. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you've never heard of Hemlock Deep, that's not an accident. Locals pretend it's just another forgotten spot in the Appalachians. You won't find it on all trails, and you sure as hell won't find a ranger station nearby. It's the kind of place you stumble into when your GPS glitches, when the map reroutes, not for convenience, but for blood. My name's Tyler. I wasn't a believer, not in the paranormal, not in old warnings scratched into weathered wood, not in the way the woods breathe when you're walking through them alone. But I am now. I'll tell you what happened. You'll feel it too if you're still enough. You'll feel the cold on your neck, just like I did. It started on a random Tuesday in October. I'd been planning a weekend hike. For a while, I wanted something quieter. No dogs barking, no kids screaming. Just the sound of my boots pressing into leaves and the wind cutting through branches. Joined this obscure forum Lost Footers people. Their talk about silent trails. Unlisted places where nature is untouched. A user with a handle. Deep woods. 23 posted coordinates. Just numbers. No description. No warnings. Punched them into my GPS. It rerouted me off Route 30. Then again off an even smaller back road. The last turn was onto a gravel path that wasn't maintained at all. Hemlocks hung low, brushing the hood of my truck by the time I reached the trailhead. I couldn't see the sun anymore. There was no official sign, just a wooden plank nailed between two trees. It had one word carved into it. Berry. I thought maybe it was an old marker, part of a longer name that had weathered away. I laughed a little. Stupid. I should have listened. My boots hit the trail, and it felt like I stepped into another time. Everything was too still. No chirping, no rustling. Even my own breath sounded muted. Trail was narrow, barely a foot wide, but it was clear. Like it had been traveled recently, which made no sense. There were no tire tracks, no wrappers, no sign of people then. I saw the first marker. It was a black feather tied with twine, hanging from a low branch. It twitched like something had just brushed past it when I stepped under it. I heard a whisper like breath on my earlobe, but no one was there. Kept walking, because of course I did, because I'm the guy who watches horror movies and yells at the screen, but still does the same shit when it's real at the 2-mile mark. I found a pile of stones stacked unnaturally. Each one was carved with a crude eye. No pupils, just open, staring sockets. I stepped around them. That's when I noticed the fog. It didn't roll in, it just appeared thick, heavy. It smelled like wet soil and something metallic. My flashlight flickered, even though the batteries were new. I turned back. Only I couldn't find the fork where I entered. There were no footprints behind me. Nothing like the trail had swallowed them. I should have panicked. But I didn't, not yet. There was something in the air. A hum, not a sound exactly. More like a frequency. It buzzed behind my teeth. Under my skin. That's when I heard the bell. A soft, distant ring, like it came from under the ground. I followed it, because that's what it wanted. And I saw her, standing in the path, wearing a dress that was once white but now soaked in brown. Her face was turned away. Her arms dangled, limp and crooked, like she had no joints. She was humming. It wasn't a melody, it was static. When she turned, her eyes weren't eyes, just black, empty holes, and from her mouth something leaked, not blood, not spit, but dirt. She didn't chase me. She just opened her mouth wider, unhinged, and the sound that came out was the same bell I'd heard before, louder inside my ears, inside my bones. I ran, I don't know how far. Branches clawed at my arms, tearing my jacket. I think something followed, not on the trail, under it. Every few steps I heard scratching below my feet, like nails scraping on wood. The ground started to buckle, roots moving, shifting, like intestines beneath the forest floor. I tripped and landed face first. When I looked up, there was a face in the dirt, eyes wide open, lips stitched shut with thorns. It was grinning. I screamed, but no sound came out. I blacked out when I woke up. It was morning. I was lying at the edge of the trailhead. My truck was where I left it. Everything looked normal, like none of it happened. Except I had a mark on my chest, 3 black lines, like claws burned into my skin. And my boots, they were filled with dirt, packed tight, not just from the trail, from something deeper. I didn't tell anyone, not at first. What could I say? Hey, I followed a trail in the middle of nowhere and saw a woman with dirt dripping from her mouth. And now my feet feel like they've been buried alive. They'd lock me up, but something changed. Bin me. After Hemlock Deep, my sleep wasn't sleep anymore. I'd close my eyes and fall through layers of soil. My dreams weren't dreams, they were tunnels, crawling things pressed against my body. Sometimes I'd wake up gagging on mud, real dark. Earth in my throat, in my sheets. I started seeing them in reflections, in puddles, in glass figures, just standing there watching me. Their mouths sewn shut, eyes never blinking, always grinning. Always grinning. I moved 3 states away, rented a small cabin near Lake George in New York. Thought the cold would help. I kept my phone off, deleted the coordinates, burned my hiking gear. But Hemlock Deep doesn't let go. I woke up one morning with pine needles scattered across my bed. No trees near my cabin, a black feather under my pillow. My boots at the foot of my bed filled again with fresh soil. I hadn't worn them in months. That S, when I found the letter, slipped under the door. No stamp, no handwriting, just torn parchment. It said, "The bell calls again, the path has not closed." The burial was incomplete. I tried burning the letter. It wouldn't catch. I soaked it in kerosene. Nothing. The paper was cold, wet, like it had been pulled from underground. I knew I had to go back, not because I wanted to, because it was the only way to stop the dreams, to stop the eyes in the mirror, to find out what had marked. May packed nothing but water and a knife. Drove back across state lines until the map started to twist. The GPS glitched right when I got near the old trail. My screen went black. Music on the radio reversed itself. My headlights dimmed, even though the sun hadn't set when I reached the place. It had changed. The wood sign that used to read "Berry" was gone, replaced by a newer plank. This one said "Opium." The trees were thinner, the air was thicker, and I could smell the rot before I took a step. I forced myself in. Every branch that brushed against my arm felt like fingers. Every gust of wind carried voices. Not whispers, not echoes, just breathing low and steady like something massive was asleep beneath the trail. Half a mile in I saw my old footprints. Still there, frozen in the dirt, like the earth had remembered me. Next to them were smaller prints, bare feet, child-sized. Following mine, step for step, I reached the old marker stones. They were cracked now, the eyes gouged deeper. Some of them were bleeding. Thick black sap ran from the sockets and pooled around. The base flies hovered over the puddles, but never landed in. Then I heard it again, the bell. Only this time it was louder, not below me, in front of me, calling. I moved forward. The trail wasn't the same. It bent differently, sloped inward, like I was being pulled toward the center of something. That's when I saw the girl again, the one in the white dress. She was closer this time, standing in a ring of mushrooms that hadn't been there a second before. She looked right at me, and her mouth moved. I couldn't hear the words, only the sound of dirt being poured into a grave. She tilted her head back and opened her jaw wider. More soil spilled out, and then something else fell, a tongue caked in black mud, still twitching. I turned to run. But the forest had shifted, trees had moved. There was no trail behind me, only roots piled thick like veins. The ground pulsed, a heartbeat slow and heavy beneath my boots. I fell straight through the soil, like it had given way just for me. Landed in a tunnel. It was too narrow to stand. The walls were packed with bones, hands still gripping soil, fingers still twitching. Crawled forward. The bell rang again. Each time it echoed, the walls shifted, ribs cracked open. Jaws clicked shut. I reached a chamber. In the center was a pit. Inside the pit was a coffin, old wood. No markings. I reached for it that second. My hand touched the lid. It splintered open, and I saw myself lying inside, eyes closed, mouth sewn shut with the same black thorns. Then the corpse opened its eyes, and it screamed without sound. The forest answered above me. Roots fell wrapped around my arms and legs, pulled me upward through layers of soil and roti. Gasped when I broke the surface, but I wasn't at the trailhead. I was standing in my bedroom. Soil covered my floor. My boots were gone, replaced with the same bare footprints I'd seen earlier. The window was open, pine needles blew across the bed, and the bell rang once more from under the house. I didn't sleep, I couldn't. Every time I shut my eyes, I felt soil pressing down on me, tasted iron and moss in the back of my throat. Heard the bell again, sometimes distant, sometimes just outside my bedroom. Wally ripped the floorboards open. The next morning started with a crowbar, and gloves ended with bare hands and broken nails. There was dirt under the cabin, but not just dirt. There were shapes in it, human shapes, dozens of them curled in fetal positions, just beneath the surface, all facing upward, eyes open, all of them, sewn shut, same black thorns as the ones I saw in that coffin. And in the center, a bell, old, rusty, but not still. It vibrated softly. No wind, no movement, just a hum that crawled inside my head. I should have left. I should have run and never looked back. But you know how this goes. Something was wrong with time. After I found the bell, it didn't tick anymore. Hours bled together like oil in water. I'd blink and it'd be night, blink again, and it was morning only. Moon never moved. It hovered above my cabin like it was stuck. That night I heard voices again. This time they were clearer children. Dozens of them whimpering, crying, begging. I followed the sound out of my cabin into the woods. Through the cold, no flashlight, no shoes, just the path calling me back. Hemlock Deep wasn't miles away anymore. It was here, wrapped around my home. The trees moved for me. The trail opened wide, and this time I didn't walk. I sank straight into the earth, like it had been waiting. For May landed in the same tunnel as before, but it was different now. Wider, wetter. The walls breathed in and out like lungs. The girl was there again. Only now she wasn't alone. Others stood behind her. Dozens, all with mouths full of dirt, all humming. The same flat, static melody. They parted as I walked, like they were leading me, like I was the last piece of something. The final route. They brought me to the pit. Again the coffin was still there, still cracked open, still full of me, but this time there was something else in the box. A journal, my journal, my. Don't remember writing in it, but it had my name, page after page, in my handwriting. Things I'd never done, names I'd never spoken, places I've never been. Each entry ended with the same words. She is it trail, she is the bell, she is the soil. We are all buried. I touched the final page, and something cold wrapped around my wrist. The girl leaned in close. No more humming, no smile, just silence. And then she whispered one thing: you were never lost. You were planted. The tunnel collapsed. I woke up in a hospital 2 towns over. A hunter had found me naked in the middle of a clearing, muttering about bells and roots and graves. They ran tests, scans. They said I'd been in the woods for 3 weeks. But I hadn't eaten, hadn't drank, and my vitals were perfect. They tried to keep me said I was a danger to myself. I smiled and nodded until they let me go. No better, no. I see the trail in places it shouldn't be, in alleyways, in parking lots, in stairwells. The bell never stopped. Tie moved again. New town, new name. But every night I check my boots. Every night I wipe dirt from the corners of my eyes, and every now and then I wake up to find black feathers on my floor, arranged in the shape of an eye. This story isn't a warning. It's a calling. If you hear the bell, if you find the trail. If the dirt starts filling your shoes, already hers, you were never hiking. You were just being carried deeper, root by root, step by step at once. You're buried. You don't get to climb out. Not all graves are dug. Some are grown. You ever notice how some trails feel like they weren't meant to be found? No maps, no ranger reports, no trip logs. Just a weathered turnoff on an old logging road with a sign half swallowed by trees. If you're reading this now, it probably means you're like me, curious, wandering, and maybe just a little broken. My name's Erin, and the story I'm about to tell isn't one of ghosts. It's not about some bloody history or cursed landmark. This is about something older, something buried and breathing. It started 2 summers ago. I was passing through South Dakota on my way to Montana. Got caught in a bad storm, the kind that chews up back roads and spits out mud and snapped pine like it's nothing. So I pulled off onto this narrow dirt road near the southern edge of the Black Hills. No cell signal, no traffic. just rain hammering my windshield and trees so thick they leaned into the road like they wanted to pull me under then. I saw it a gap in the forest with an old wooden sign. Cracked and faded it read Widow's Pass, Trailhead. Don't know why I stopped. I wasn't looking for a hike. I wasn't even sure I'd be able to drive out of there if the rain kept up. But something about that name, it reached out and tugged. Something deep in my ribs. I parked, waited. The rain slowed to a mist. The air turned quiet to quiet. No birds, no wind, no rustling. Just the kind of stillness that makes you feel like you're already being watched. The trail was narrow, overgrown, but I stepped onto it anyway. My boots sank slightly into the wet moss as I moved forward. Branches scraped against my jacket. I thought I heard something whisper, but it could have just been the leaves. Half a mile in, I found the first marker, a small wooden doll tied to a tree with what looked like horsehair. Its face was blank, no eyes, no mouth, just smooth wood, polished by years of rain. Should have creeped me out, but it didn't, not yet. Instead, I felt drawn forward, each step quieter than the last, each breath heavier than. I smelled the earth, not just the usual forest scent. This was deeper, richer, like fresh-turned grave detat. The 2-mile mark, I found the bell. It was hanging from a crooked branch, old iron, rusted, but intact. It swayed slightly, even though there was no wind. I reached up, touched it, and the moment my fingers brushed the metal, the air shifted, the forest exhaled behind me. The trail was gone, replaced by a wall of trees so thick I couldn't see through them. Branches, overlapped roots twisted across the ground like veins. I turned round, and she was there, standing in the path, barefoot, soaked, wearing a long dress that clung to her body like she'd just crawled out of the ground. Her hair covered her face, but I saw her hand. It was wrong, too long, 2 thin fingers stained black. She raised it slowly and pointed at the belly, backed up, tripped over something buried just under the moss. It felt like bone, not wood, not rock. Bone. When I looked down, I saw a face. In the dirt, wide-eyed mouth open, stuffed with soil. Then the bell rang, soft, low, like it was coming from inside my chest. I don't remember screaming, but my throat hurt for hours afterward. After wide ran branches, sliced my arms, roots grabbed my ankles. Something whispered my name over and over from the trees. Not shouted, whispered, like it knew me. When I finally burst out of the forest, I collapsed next to my car. The sky was dark, no sign of the trailhead, just forest, endless forest, but the bell kept ringing. I didn't drive, I just sat there for a while, hands trembling on the steering wheel, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it, that maybe I'd slipped and hit my head, or had a waking dream brought on by hunger or exhaustion. But there was dirt under my fingernails, wet, dark soil packed so tightly it cracked my cuticle. Sand. Worse, my boots were filled with it, not mud from the forest floor, not the kind you pick up while hiking, but something heavier, dense, like it had been shoveled in by hand. When I finally turned, the ignition, the car coughed to life like it had been asleep for days. My phone still had no signal. The sky looked wrong, flat, gray, no sun, no movement in the clouds. I drove for what felt like hours, but the odometer barely ticked. Made it to a diner. In a town I didn't recognize. No name on the signs, no gas stations, just a main street with shuttered windows and locals who didn't speak. They just watched me eat, like they were waiting to see if I'd finish, like they'd seen someone like me before. Paid in cash, got back in the car, started driving again. And then I saw Eater Black Feather on the dashboard. Didn't remember it being there. Didn't know where it came from, but when I touched it, the radio turned on by itself, and the static sounded like breathing. I turned it off, kept driving, didn't stop until I was back at my apartment. 3 states away there. Dreams started the same night. They weren't violent. Not at first, just flashes, the bell swinging in the dark roots, writhing. Through the floor, the doll tied to the tree, blinking. Once then came the sounds. Voices whispering in a language I couldn't understand, wood creaking under my bed. My name being said softly from inside the closet. Always from the closet I moved a chair against the door. Didn't matter. The whispers still came. I started noticing things, small things at first. All the plants in my apartment dying, overnight photographs, warping my own face in the mirror, looking tired, not just sleepy, but drained. Older, like something was leeching time. From May took sleeping pills. Didn't help. They only made the dreams longer then. One night I woke up with dirt in my mouth, grit between my teeth, a black string tied around my wrist, the same kind the dog had been bound with on the trail eye. Cut it off, tossed it. It came back the next morning, wrapped tighter, my skin bruised beneath its soot. I reached out, posted anonymously online, described the trail, the bell, the woman, the feather. Didn't mention the name Widow's Pass. Didn't want to invite it back in. That was when the messages started private. DMS. Strangers telling me they'd seen her too. That they'd found bells in the woods. That something was following them through mirrors and glass. One man said he hadn't spoken in weeks, that every time he tried soil poured from his mouth. Another woman said she couldn't stop walking, that she'd been walking for 3 days, her feet bleeding, but the trail wouldn't end every turn she made lead her deeper, and she could hear someone crying beneath her sigh. Asked where she was, she said she didn't know, but the trees whispered a name every night before Spitos. Past that sealed IT, had to go back not to escape it, I knew. That was off the table, but maybe I could understand it. Maybe it wanted something. Maybe if I gave it what it wanted, it would let me go. I packed light rope, flashlight, knife water, no phone. I didn't want anything electronic with me this time. It was 3 in the morning when I reached the edge of the forest. Again, same spot, same road. Only now the sign was different. Change. The letters weren't carved anymore. They were burned into the wood, and it didn't say, "Widows, pass it. Said you are expected." That was the first time I felt true fear. The kind that makes your knees go weak, that tells you to run. But I didn't. He stepped onto the trails. Time it felt different, not overgrown, not forgotten. It was clean, prepared, like someone had swept it, the ground smooth. The moss, Go and I walked for over an hour, the path looping in ways I couldn't track. I marked trees, but when I turned back, the marks were gone, replaced with new ones. I hadn't made symbols. I didn't recognize circles within circles. A bell drawn in charcoal. Then I heard Ither crying, It started faint, just a whimper, but it grew louder, closer. Until I realized it wasn't one voice, it was dozens, all around me, above me, below me. They weren't just crying, they were beginning. Stepped off the trail just for a second, and the forest closed behind me, like a clenched fist. No light, no sound, just bell. Soft and slow. When I looked down, the ground beneath my feet had turned to ash, and in the ash there were footprints, bare, bloody. Heading deeper, I followed them. I followed those bloody footprints for what felt like days, not hours, not miles, just distance without meaning. Each step led me deeper into something that didn't follow the rules of light or time. I would blink and the sun would shift, blink again. Bye. And it would be pitch black with no transition. Only the bell remained the same, always in my ears, always just a little ahead of me. Never louder, never closer, just steady like a heartbeat in the earth. The forest became stranger as I walked, less like nature, more like memory trees twisted into impossible shapes. Some were leafless, made entirely of bone. Others leaned in to form arches like ribs. And every few minutes I would see flickers of light, not sunlight, but soft glows. Lanterns held by people I could never quite reach. Figures half seen through the trees. They never turned around, just walked parallel to me, moving with my pace like shadows that had broken free from a body. Then I came to the door. Yes. A door standing by itself in the middle of a clearing. No frame, no hinges, just a tall wooden door propped upright in dirt, covered in scratch marks, thousands of them, like something had tried to claw its way through from both sides. The footprints ended there, as if whoever I was following had simply stepped through and disappeared. Stood in front of it, waited. Didn't want to touch it, didn't want to find out what was behind it. But the wind died around me, the trees fell silent, and the bell rang louder. This time not in the distance, but in my ears, in my chest, like it was vibrating. My bones I reached, bound, and opened the door. There was no room behind it, no hallway, no forest continuation. Just a staircase, spiraling downward into black. I stepped in. The air changed, immediately wet, cold, and heavy with rot. Each stair was slick with moss and something darker. I didn't bring a flashlight, but the walls seemed to glow faintly with veins of blue fungus that pulsed like veins. I descended for what had to be ours. The bell fading behind me, replaced by a new sound, a soft dragging noise, like someone pulling their nails down stone, but slower, deliberate. When I reached the bottom, the tunnel opened up into a massive underground chamber, and there they were, the people from the woods, the ones I'd seen holding lanterns, now standing in a perfect circle. Their backs to me, their heads tilted back, mouths open, not making sound, just open and breathing. At the center of the circle was a tree. Dead, blackened roots, twisted like barbed wire, and hanging from the branches were dolls, dozens of them, just like the one I saw on my first visit. Some had faces, some didn't. All of them moved slightly, as if breathing. Then she stepped out from behind the tree knot. The same woman, not exactly. Her shape was different, taller to tall. Her arms almost reached her knees. She wore the same soaked dress, but her face was visible. Now it wasn't human eyes, wide and entirely black. No whites, no iris, just pits. Skin stretched too tight over bones, and her mouth, it was smiling, but the smile never ended. It wrapped too. far round, split her cheeks. She didn't speak, she didn't have to because the circle began to whisper for her stay. Buried, stay still, stay still, stay silent, stay buried, stay still, stay silent. Over and over, each time, louder, until it became a chant, then a scream. I covered my ears, but it was inside me. The words weren't sounds anymore. They were inside my veins, pulsing in time with my heart hand. Then the ground cracked from beneath the tree. Something began to crawl out, hands, dozens pale, thin, clawing through the soil like it was water, then heads, faces wrapped in black cloth, each of them screaming without sound. The woman raised one hand, and the roots of the tree moved. They surged outward, grabbing each person in the circle, wrapping around their legs, pulling them into the ground like they were never there. Turned to run, but the door was gone. No stairs, no exit, just stone. The roots came for me next, wrapped around my ankle, pulled me forward onto my face. I tried to scream, soil filled my mouth. That's when I heard the voice, not hers, mine, coming from the tree. It was my voice calling out, repeating the same thing over and over. I buried myself. I buried myself. I buried myself. Then I saw the doll. Again, it was lying next to me in the soil, but this one had my face carved crudely but unmistakably. Its eyes blinked and everything went black. I woke up on my apartment floor. 3 days later, no phone, no service, just blood on my carpet and the sound of the bell fading out through the window. Only it wasn't outside, it was inside my walls. Since then, things have gotten worse. I keep seeing that door in places it shouldn't be, behind closets, in bathroom mirrors, in reflections off spoons. It's always closed, but I know it's waiting the worst part. My neighbors are disappearing, one by one. Every time someone goes missing, a doll appears on my porch, wrapped in black thread, with the missing person's face seam. Not the only one anymore. This thing, whatever it is, it's growing, spreading. The bell never stopped. It's just quieter now, humming under floors, in drains, in power lines. If you're reading this, don't go looking for Widow's Pass. Don't follow the sound, because the bell doesn't guide you. It roots you, it plants you like a seed, and once you're buried, you come back hollow. I've started locking every door in my apartment, closets, cabinets, the bathroom, even the fridge. Not because I'm scared of someone breaking in, but because I'm scared of what might crawl out. The bell doesn't just ring at night anymore. It comes when I'm awake, at work, in stores, in elevators. People around me don't seem to hear it. Or maybe they do, but they've learned not to react. I see it in their faces sometimes, that flicker of recognition, the twitch in their eyes, when the sound starts like a memory half remembered, and then they look away quickly, like looking too long invites something back. I've stopped checking my mail, because every envelope is filled with dirt. I've stopped answering my door, because whoever knocks never casts a shadow, and still every morning another doll appears on my porch. More detailed now, not just faces, but clothing, birthmarks, scars, perfect miniatures of people I've never met. I started collecting them at first, lining them up in a drawer. Then the drawer filled. Now they sit in boxes in my attic, wrapped in cloths. Sometimes they move. Don't mean they shift positions or fall over. I mean I've walked past the attic door and heard them whispering, humming, breathing in unison. I've opened the door once to check, and they were all staring at me, not the same way as before. Not blank watching, judging, waiting. Waiting one only once. The fire didn't take. The fabric wouldn't catch, and when I finally forced it to smolder, the lights in my apartment exploded, every bulb, one by one, in complete silence, and when I turned to look, the doll was back on the shelf, completely untouched, but my left hand was blistered, blackened, and dirt poured from under my nails for 3 straight days. I've given up trying to explain it. I stopped talking to people, because the more I tell, the more I remember, and the more I remember, the more the forest grows inside me. Yes, inside me. Yes. Not metaphor anymore. I feel it every morning. I wake up and pull a root from my throat, not a figure of speech, an actual root wet-coated in bile and ash. I keep them in a jar. Don't know why, maybe as proof, maybe as a warning. There's a knock at the door. Now been happening every night at the same time, 3:16 a.m. 3 knocks exactly spaced. Always followed by the sound of the bell behind it. Never in front, always behind the door, like the house is echoing something that doesn't belong. I stopped checking until last night. This time, the door was unlocked. Didn't unlock it, I never unlock it, but it was wide open. No wind, no light. Just that thick fog from the trail rolling across my floor, and standing in the doorway was the first doll. The one I saw tied to the tree, only now it was walking. Its joints creaked like wood splitting, its head tilted unnaturally, and its mouth, now carved open, smiled wide with rows of thorns behind it. The girl stood against Hill in that soaked white dress, still silent, but not watching me anymore. She was watching the apartment itself, looking around like she was remembering something, like she'd been here before. Then she said something for the first time. She looked at me and whispered, "Your roots are showing." And I collapsed. I woke up outside, not just outside my building, not in my city, but in the forest. Again, widows pass only. Now the trees weren't silent. They breathed in unison. The dolls hung from every branch, their mouths moving without voices. The ground beneath me pulsed, and I saw them, the missing people, each one kneeling in a perfect circle, hands buried deep in the soil, their bodies still, but their eyes open, mouths sewn shut with that same black thread, one thread running from person to person to person, connecting them like veins. I wasn't standing, I was kneeling to my hands, buried. I tried to scream, but the soil filled my throat. Again, the bellet rang louder than I'd ever heard. Eta, final time. That was last night. Ty, don't remember how I got back, but I do know this: the world is hollow now, like it's all built on tunnels. And in those tunnels there are things crawling, not demons, not ghosts, but the pieces of us we leave behind when we pretend we're okay, when we lie to ourselves that we're whole. The trail is everywhere. Now I see it in cracks on the pavement, in reflections on bus windows, in the lines of my palms. I don't know how to stop it, only know it wants more people. So if you hear the bell, if you see the girl, if a doll appears with your face so already stepped onto the trailhead, once you're on it, to never leave you, just sink, and the roots take you home.